Tapu, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Kasankma Keparu with another video for you. And in this video, I want to talk about how I had a sex magic orgy. That's a very interesting topic there. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. And if this is the first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. And if you're not already a member or a supporter on Patreon, please consider doing so. As a supporter, you get exclusive access to a wealth of knowledge. You get white papers, you get instructional videos on how to invoke a spirit, how to communicate with the ancestors, how to do self-hypnosis to where you can lose weight, attract money, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I can't really go into. And you can support us for as little as $1 or $20 a month. There's no obligation, and you can cancel at any time. And don't forget, as always, we have free exclusive ebooks. You can click the links below, download those ebooks, and get more information and more knowledge into my spiritual teachings. Lastly, please share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started and free the planet, which has been captured, and the space-time continuum that we were on, that line, has been changed. And consequently, the planet is now in darkness. So let's correct that. All right. So namaste. Welcome to all the Magi's here. And sorry it's taken me so long to get this broadcast going. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I was originally scheduled to just broadcast last night, but some things popped up to where I had to delay it. And that's really going to be the segue for that discussion on this topic. But let me just talk a little bit about this. You must understand that one of the things that I do is I communicate with other Magi's on different tier levels, different levels. Some are very advanced in terms of magic, some are very low in terms of how they practice their initiates. But one of the things that you must understand that's vital and important is that I just did an article that I released called Hotep Hustlers, and it really exposes a lot of these so-called people in the Black nationalist movement or Afrocentric movement or Pan-Africanists who claim to be so down with the cause, but really what they're doing is they're scamming the Black community, in essence. So I did an article really exposing that. But one of the things I want you to understand is that there is a stark difference between someone who's really like practicing and putting this information to good use and all those others who are, and I'm not just talking about scamming, but who are just book read. They go and they read things, they'll get a book and they'll read it and then they regurgitate the information and therefore they become an authority. And that's simply not so. So let me explain a little bit more about this. Like last night, I'm doing my meditations and I realized that I stumbled across a new technique that will really enhance and improve um, my meditation, therefore shortening the time when the behavior would really cement in my spirit, because last night there was a full moon, right? So I'm documenting this. I'm writing it down in my book because when I come across a new technique or something that works for me, I really try to document it. And then I'll write it out as a process and a step, and then I'll try it again to make sure it works. And if it works, then I'll share that with the community at large. So a lot of the things that I do teach have what we call as field experience, meaning that they have been proven to work because I have tested them. I have gone out there and utilized them and shown the efficacy of them. But one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that these individuals who go and read these books and regurgitate information are not applying this information. They are not pioneers. They're not out there researching, trial and error. That's very important, you know. So they come along and they'll espouse this which seems to be some deep level stuff, but it's nothing. You know what I mean? And I realized a long time ago that when I was getting into magic and really understanding it, that there were so many levels to this. And let me go deeper with you. Yes, there is the level of researching things in books, but most people who practice magic on a very high level will not put their secrets in books. I remember one time when I was learning from my high priest, and this is about maybe 20 years ago, and we were talking about India and how India practices their own form of magic, and he had talked about some books that really had some deep magical knowledge. So I went out there and I got the books, and it was very difficult to really track these books down. And then when I found the one book that I needed, you couldn't just buy that book. It came as part of a volume of books, so I had to purchase the entire volume. So then I had brought one of the books in to class, and it was very challenging reading this book. It was so condensed and just woo, it was challenging. So I had showed it to the high priest, and he took the book from me and he started reading um, from one of the chapters. And he points to me. He points to a line in the book. He says, "Look here. Look at this." He says, "They're telling you to perform this ritual, but they're not telling you what you need for the ritual." And that was really an awakening to me because he was absolutely right, because they do leave this information out on purpose. So why should they make this information available to the general audience? They would not do that. No one does that. So I want you to understand that these so-called individuals who out there want to be self-proclaimed scholars and stuff, they really don't know what they're talking about. I mean, and then the next level of when I began to understand is when I left the priesthood and started to do my own studies and travel across the country to learn from other gurus. I didn't realize, and I came across this, that I could learn from the ancestors. I could learn from spirits, that they would come to me and they would impart knowledge to me, secret knowledge. And when I came across that revelation, then my spiritual techniques, or my process in which I was doing things, or my knowledge skyrocketed. I started to know more. My magic became more effective, more powerful, because I had these spirits I was working on who were sharing knowledge with me directly from the Akashic records. Do you see? So, last night when I'm doing my stuff, I'm doing my research, and I'm finding more effective ways to do things, it calls for me maybe to have to put off a broadcast and say, well, this is more important than doing a broadcast tonight. So I have to delay the broadcast. But other individuals, they'll read a book and then they'll say, oh, look, let me just talk about this. But they don't have any real empirical experience, if you understand what I'm talking about. So, and learning from a spirit or an ancestor or interdimensional being is powerful. But these entities are not going to come to you and just teach you or share secrets with you, because see, they're in tune with your vibration. And if your vibration is very sincere and dedicated, then they'll pick up on that, and then it'll become an awakening where they'll reach out to you. And then, because there's another layer to this, because we've been so conditioned by Western society to fear paranormal events, we see something happening, we become afraid and fearful and run from it when we should be embracing it. The first time a spirit came into my apartment, I was terrified. I yelled and said, "Leave!" And it did leave, not realizing what I had done. I had destroyed any type of communication or communion with the afterlife, with an ancestor. And I mean, consequently, after that, I did go on to invoke more ancestors who walked with me and helped me. And I'm going to do a video on that later on, which talks about carrying the deity or carrying the spirit. That's very important, because too many times, let me explain this. Too many times I've been in magical communities where it was all bullshit, meaning that they would claim to carry the deity, they would claim to invoke a spirit, and it really was just them. When they said they were possessed by a spirit, no, they weren't. And I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming their teachers, because their teachers don't know how to teach it properly, because their teachers don't have the experience to teach it properly. Listen, when you're carrying the deity or when you're possessed by a spirit, that's a very serious thing. And that's nothing to be playing around with, because these entities can or will do harm to you if you don't approach this from the right perspective in the right way. And on that same note, I think a lot of you are not really respectful of what certain teachers know and what they've been through. I remember when I was learning from certain gurus, I did a lot of research before I decided to study with them. Some of them I actually just packed up and moved to their city and asked to become a student. And I was always respectful. You know, I have one gentleman who works with me now who is imparting some serious knowledge in taking my training of using the Oracle to the next level. He doesn't have to ask for my respect. It's a given. When I communicate with him, whether it be verbally or through emails, I always show a certain level of respect. And I make sure there's that line of demarcation and I don't cross that line. And you would be surprised as to many times, how many times I come across an email or someone may call me and they're just outright disrespectful. I mean, I tolerate it, but it shouldn't have to be that way. They should know automatically how to show respect because you're dealing with an individual myself who has gone to the afterlife, who has traveled interdimensionally. Someone who has done that, you have to give him respect. Even though I disagree with his ideology and he's passed on now, but I still would show respect to Aleister Crowley. He was gay. He dealt with black magic. He was perverted. He was greedy. But his knowledge in the occult is something that it's widely known. So you have to show that person a certain level of respect. Doesn't mean that I'm going to follow them around and become their student. Even though when I went to study the Japanese martial arts and the Japanese black magic techniques, I went there with the understanding that I wanted to become what we call an uchideshi. An uchideshi. That means a live-in student. That means that the Grand Master would take me in to his abode and teach me 24/7. That was my goal. And one teacher who I learned from just so happened, not only did he practice these forms of Japanese black magic, but he was also a Christian. And I was totally against that. I was like, no. He even tried to bring me to his church. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I still gave him respect, though. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't mean I should be disrespecting him because I have a difference of opinion, ideology wise. And I think that's a pervasive problem within the minority community where we don't love and respect each other. So therefore, when a guru comes in your midst, you don't respect them. You know, see, I'm not used to explaining my position. I'm not used to that. I'm used to here's what you need to do it, and shut the hell up. Because I've already given you the tools to understand right and wrong, which is an oracle reading. I remember there was a really challenging time in the priesthood, and some of the higher level priests had thought that they had gotten to such a high understanding of the occult and Kemetic science that they deserved to be the leaders. So the high priest said, if you think you can take my job, fine. Go do an oracle reading and ask God, should you lead this organization? And if God says yes, I will step aside. And they did the oracle reading, and God said no, that he is the high priest. So when I say I'm not here to explain my position, that's because I've given you the oracles. I've given you a means and a measure by which to determine truth. You either follow it or you don't. Too many people are they're vacillating. They're here, they're there, you know. And some people have brought with them so much baggage and negative thinking and wrong thinking from other spiritual communities that they've been involved in that it's almost very difficult to deal with them because I have to purge them or they need to be purged of that old way of thinking. Had one young gentleman come to me and he says, I don't agree with what you're saying. Let's do a debate. Let's do a debate. And I said, brother, where you get that idea of debate? I said, actually, I know where he got it from. The Hotep hustlers, they love to debate. I said, brother, I'm not going to debate you. You go do an oracle reading and then come back to me and we'll talk. There's no debate here. What are you? And that's coming from the Greek practice where for them to understand truth, it came from verbal discourse. You know what I mean? I don't engage in that. We don't have time to mess around and to deal with those types of things. And just get that straight. So Magi's, please hit the like button. We need more likes on the video. And if you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. And I'm going to call you guys out. And I don't know if you guys donate. I go on some of these other people's channels and they're like donating and like crazy. And I'm like, look at you. And you guys have not even like donated $1. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. So I'm calling you out. And typically I don't like to do that, but you guys get a lot of good information, you know, information where you probably can't get this anywhere else unless you were to enroll in the priesthood. So let's get down to business now that I've kind of set the stage with that information so that you understand why sometimes, I don't make a broadcast and things of that nature is because I'm doing the work. I don't just talk the talk. You know what I'm saying? It would be so easy for me just to read and come on the channel and just go, oh, blah 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 blah, and then you intellectually get off on that. That doesn't work for me. That's not how I'm built. That's not how I'm made. I want to go out there and practice this and put it into um, good use. Otherwise, it is of no use to me. And certain people, I've noticed that in the community, feel empowered because they've read 6 books and they know the dates of this and the names of this. Well, I mean, that's great. If you feel empowered by that, that's great, but that's not going to save your life. That's not who you see. You're a divine being, you're God. And the problem with the community that we're facing is that we're caught up in aesthetics. You understand what I mean? You got people, these nincompoops in the Nation of Islam, walking around with bow tie and suits. And I guess that's supposed to make them righteous. And then you have these other idiots walking around calling each other king and queen. That's aesthetics, man. That's superficial. That means nothing. That's not going to save you. What's going to save you is knowing that you, in times of crisis, you can do a ritual. You can invoke a spirit that can get you out of trouble. That's what's going to save you. And if you really look and take a close examination of why we're oppressed and why we're in the situation we're in, it all boils down to superficiality, buying into aesthetics. If you want to look at, for example, and I point to this, not that I pick on these individuals because I can pick on the Christian church as well, but the Nation of Islam has these million monkey marches to Washington. That's right, I said million monkey marches to Washington because monkey see, monkey do, but no one wants to question what are we doing. How do you have 2 rallies in Washington D.C. and accomplish nothing? And yet not one of them has the insight to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we could have done something more effective to the movement than just a show of symbolism. That's why you elected Barack Obama, because Barack Obama was just a symbol. He didn't end racism. He didn't make a change. Aesthetics. We've got to get rid of that and start looking at substance. 22nd hexagram in the I-ching. Form and function. You got to have both. We're too caught up on form. Symbolism. And we trade that for progress. And many of us don't really know what we're talking about anyway. So we regurgitate old information from the civil rights era, from Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X. Just regurgitate that stuff as if it's applicable to today, which is not. It is not. But it sounds good. So we say it, you know. Perfect example is in the Bible and also in the I-ching. It talks about doing a ritual and not having anything to sacrifice to God. Well, God wants your sincerity. That the man who sacrifices 100 cows for the ritual will gain nothing if he is not sincere. And the one man who's poor and has nothing but performs a sincere ritual, God will recognize that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, with that said, I want you to understand this very clearly because this has caused a lot of confusion. The way our ancestors thought and operated in antiquity was different than today, far different than today. You know, there was no idea of feminism back in ancient Kemet. That's meaningless to them. They wouldn't know what that is. Their whole perspective and outlook on life was so extremely different. Let me give you a case in point. When a well-known leader would die, whether it be due to disease or old age, there would be certain followers of his who would, in some ways we call it, commit suicide. They would kill themselves, you know, because they wanted to follow that great leader in the afterlife and give service to him in the afterlife. That's how dedicated they were. David, namaste. Hetepu, thank you for the donation. Much appreciated. So you would have these leaders who would pass on, and their followers would choose to take their life so they can be of service to them in the afterlife. How deep is that? People will be like, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to do that. Well, you're dealing with a society that thought far differently. Another case in point. What we look at today is a type of exploitation of the human body, pornography. In ancient Kemet or in ancient Africa, even in ancient Greece, they didn't look at the body in a perverse way. The body was natural. So it's very common, and you'll see this even today, for women to walk around naked, children to play naked. How many times have you seen Greek statues of the people naked or topless? It's a different perspective on life, a different way of looking at things, because our minds have been corrupt and manipulated in modern times to where we look at something and we think it, ooh, that's perverse. I mean, if you look at the phallus symbol, which is the penis of today in Washington, the monument, that's the phallus. That's erect. That symbolizes the health of the nation. That is the penis of Osir, the risen one. We didn't see that as perverse. We knew what it was. And if you even look at ancient Kemetic Metu Neta, the carvings, you'll actually see drawings of the penis. And some people gag at that, but that's real. That didn't bother us. There are drawings of the vagina. That didn't bother us. It was all natural. But things have been twisted to such a degree that we don't know which way is up. You know, when I look at, for example, the porn industry, the adult industry, I look at a wasted opportunity and I say, here they are having sex and wasting that chi energy, that kundalini energy. Because if you engage in a type of sex magic, you could perform you can make miracles. But that's relegated to a certain discipline called sex magic. But that really should be about how you and your partner make love consistently, meaning that you don't just go to your partner and say, let's have sex magic. No, that should be automatic, a natural thing you two should be doing anyway. When you and your partner have sex, you should be holding back the orgasm so that you both can focus on an objective and channel that chi energy, and that you both agree to have orgasm at the same time, which will be at the height of seeing yourself visually achieve the objective. That will bring it into fruition. That will bring it from 5D to 4D. But that science is lost. We don't understand that because Christian fundamentalists have perverted the body. They come along and say the body's sinful and get everybody else to get on the same page. And that's a lie. In the same way, people think, oh, a man having two wives, that's wrong. No, it's not. Who told you it was wrong? Did you do an oracle reading? So I had this woman come to me and she asked me if she can go to the Heteru ritual. I said, sure, you can go to the Heteru ritual. So she went. Full moon is on a Friday, and that's a perfect time. Heteru's day is Friday. So she calls me up, freaking out, you know, and she would call me Sabai, and Sabai is Kemetic for a teacher. She says, Sabai, I was at the ritual. You'll never believe what I saw. I said, well, what did you see? She said, people were taking their clothes off and having sex right then and there. I said, okay, well, what was the problem? What upset you? She goes, didn't you hear me? They were having sex, real sex right in front of me. I said, well, do you understand what Heteru is, or who Heteru is? The goddess of love, the goddess of sex. What did you think you were going to see when you went there? She goes, oh, I thought I would just see like a regular ritual. I didn't know people were going to be getting down. And I said to her, I said, well, you have to understand that a type of orgy or sex ritual was common in antiquity. That was nothing new. That was nothing shocking. It was the Greeks and Romans that perverted it. They started to pervert it. But we perform sex magic. We perform rituals to the goddess Hathor, Heteru, and part of that was having sex at the ritual. And they weren't just having sex for the pleasure of having sex. They were channeling that energy, remember, into achieving a goal, or maybe being altruistic and looking and seeing the community prosper. When times would get tough and there was famine and they didn't have a good season in terms of the crops, they would do massive sex. They could do a massive sex ritual and ask everyone to visualize next year's harvest being plentiful. And lo and behold, if they did the ritual right, next year there would be abundance of food. But this whole idea of looking at it from a very perverted and twisted way, to where you think that the ancients were just engaging in it for just the pleasure of it. No, that's not true. That's the way modern people do in modern times. It's all just to get off. Next time you got a situation or something challenging that's happening to you, you ask your mate, you say, listen, can we have sex, but we need to do a sex ritual, and see if he or she are down for that. Then you'll know if they're really spiritual or not. I'm not kidding. Years ago, I tried to explain this to a student, and she freaked out. She couldn't comprehend this. And I thought about it. I said, here, I'm explaining something so natural and so beautiful, yet the society paints it as so perverted. Herodotus, the historian, in his book Histories, wrote about his experience when he went to ancient Egypt. Not only did he say from his eyewitness account that the Egyptians were black, he was saying he was shocked to see that the women and the children were running around naked. See, they didn't have pedophiles back then. They didn't have Christian fundamentalists running around going, "You're going to hell because you're naked. The body is sinful." No, the women walked around with their bushes showing. The men walked around with their packages swinging in the air. But because we've been under the thumb of this Western tyrannical society bent on the destruction of us and the planet, we don't know when we see something that is positive and life affirming. We don't know. We can't identify it because we're so twisted and so backwards. You understand what I'm saying? Strong wolf. Namaste. Well, that's part of the plan. They have to claim you're a demon because they got to keep you from that power. See, a ritual is very powerful. And the ruling elite, the Illuminati, figured out a long time ago if they use Christians to be their watchdogs and to call out everything that can empower the people as being evil and of the devil, they would keep the masses in darkness and in ignorance. Do you understand? And they were successful in what they did. Because you think about non Western religions and you think about paganism, voodoo or voodoo, Santeria, negative, casting spells, voodoo dolls, all this negative stuff. Other day, I had a spirit come into my room and did something that shocked the heck out of me, almost scared me in a way. And then when I came to my senses, I dropped to the floor and I said, "Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for number one, intervening and helping me. And number two, showing me that there are things that I cannot see with my eyes, that there is a different dimension where entities exist and that they're willing and they're reaching out and trying to help you." A lot of people, a lot of magicians, high level magicians, have problems evoking spirits. I've never had that problem. It's come easy for me because I was born with that affinity, that relationship with them already. So when I do a ritual, I invoke them pretty quickly. Other people have a different challenging time. And there's different reasons for that because sometimes they're more too much left brain and enough right brain. Other times they just don't have the belief, enough belief. They've been so conditioned by Western society that they doubt, and that doubt will hurt you. I was working with a demonologist. He's a very powerful magi. And he works specifically with demons. And he was teaching me how to invoke a spirit, not a demon, a spirit, right? And he went through all the process and all that, and he looked at me. He says, "Kasak, I just showed you all this stuff. It was a very complex thing. You have to build a table with these dimensions. You have to have the star at this specific location." So then he looked at me and he said, "You know what, Kasak?" He says, "Even though I've shown you all of this, you don't really need all of this. You don't have to go through all of this to evoke the spirit." And I said, "Well, then why is it? Then why is that a requirement? Why are they asking you to do that in order to evoke the spirit?" He says, "Because when you go through such an elaborate process, it builds faith. You believe more. You understand?" And he's absolutely right. You value something by how much you have to work for it. If a woman comes to you and she sleeps with you the first night, you're not going to value her as much as if she held out for 3 weeks. This is why a lot of magic and magical books, they make you jump through hoops so that you can build your faith. Because a very powerful tool in magic is belief, faith. This is why we talk about permission slips. This is why we say you really don't need permission slips. But we work with them anyway because we know that you're at a level the way you need them. I had one of the magi's I was working with, and he went and he bought him a $500 wand. I said, well, the wand is just a permission slip, but if you feel that that wand is going to help you do your magic, then by all means, go buy it. Go spend the $500. I wasn't downing him. I wasn't saying he's wrong. I'm saying, well, if you need that wand to believe that you can do your magic, then go ahead and get it then. Guy came to me and says, well, listen, can you make me taller? I said, well, that you get into the realm of shape shifting. Yeah, I can make you taller, but why do you want to be taller? Why don't you just make everybody else shorter? You know what I'm saying? Make them conform to you. It's your reality. Now, I'm not going to say all sex orgies or sex rituals are righteous and upright. There's some that are being done today that are just perverted and done for negative reasons. But what I'm saying is there is an opportunity there to invoke a certain amount of energy that, if channeled correctly, you could perform miracles. But you have to get rid of your Western sensibility, your Western ideas. People ask a lot of questions. Well, Kasnak, if you're married to two wives, do you guys get together and have sex, all three of you? I say typically no. But if you want to perform a specific ritual or something you need to do, you may consider doing that. See, the thing is that you have this Western society, especially people from the religious arena, your Christians, your Muslims, that come across as so freaking arrogant, and they are arrogant. That they try to dictate to you something that predates them. One of the first gods in history was Horus. So don't come along and tell me about your Jesus or your Muhammad. Heru existed thousands of years before they were even an idea. Heru Hathor, the most beautiful goddess there was, existed long before Mary, long before Eve, long before Lilith. And then came along Medusa. Are you guys familiar with Medusa? One of the most beautiful goddesses who was raped and then cursed. Talk about a tragic story. Very beautiful goddess was done wrong, and she became twisted and evil. But that's a story for another broadcast. We used to have the priest and the priestesses. Well, the priestesses, when they were oracles. They didn't need a permission slip. They could take their clothes off, put herbs and powders all over their body, go into a trance state while you're sitting there watching, and then come out of the trance state with the information you need and disseminate that information to you. And no one was caught up in looking at their bodies and going lusting after their bodies. See, when you have sex, whether it be with your partner in orgy, and it's for the purpose of spirituality, then you are honoring God in that way. You don't believe me? Do an oracle reading. Don't have to listen to what I'm saying. Go to the oracle and get the truth from God. And I know it's difficult. I have lost family and friends because they don't subscribe to my ideology. I don't care. I'm not trying to force them to. I just move on. And they say the most ridiculous things to me. Well, Kasak, the women I see you with, they're always mixed or they're this and that. You know, um, I don't see you with enough black women. I said, well, for one thing, I'm not trying to prove anything to you. And another thing is, I love all women. And there's no such thing as black, white, Asian, whatever. We're all consciousness. Consciousness has no gender and has no race. Some idiot in the Hotep community comes along and saying the black woman is God. I said that's impossible. That's an impossibility because consciousness has no race. So you can't say that the white woman is God or the Asian woman is God. It's impossible. That statement demonstrates how ignorant you are spiritually. You want to empower your magic and to see it come to fruition, then when you're doing a ritual, incorporate masturbation and try to hold off as long as possible from the climax while visualizing your objective while masturbating. That's seriously empowering what you want. And for men, if you can visualize the objective, maybe it's to get a new car or get some money. When you blow your load, take that semen and put it on the ritual table or the altar because that semen is now charged magically. Same thing with the women. When they come, take your juices and put that into a little container and put that on the altar. It's powerful now. You've charged it. We're all adults here. We're talking about a very high level of practice, magic. So we've got to be open and honest in how we look at things and how we apply them. You can even start using menstrual blood in your ritual. And for guys, you can cut your hand and use that blood. Because once you have been chanting your mantra, your blood is now magically charged. And if you put that blood with your semen, oh my God, that's going to be some powerful stuff. This is why the ruling elite, the Illuminati, would have sex with children. They would have anal sex because they knew that that type of sex orgasm was very powerful, especially within the youth. Now, of course, I'm not condoning that. I'm not saying that they should. I'm just really just kind of passing on the information so you understood that they understood what sex was for and how to use it during magic. And then when you get a bunch of people in a type of, we'll call it an orgy setting, and they all are having sex, and they have, well, prior to doing that, they need to go in there and they should be bathing themselves in spiritual bath. There's the incense, there's all the other fetishes, the crystals and things of that nature. But when they're having sex, that room becomes magically charged. It becomes powerful. There's powerful energy there. And if you walk in there with an objective in mind and you visualize it, just by you being in proximity to those individuals who are having sex, that could be just enough for it to manifest. You know, keep that in mind. Because really, as what we're concerned about as magi's is the energy. That's what we're concerned about, is the energy. Because we can take that energy and we can mold it and use it to shape our destiny, to shape our lives. I'll go to certain places because there's powerful energy there. Case in point, waterfall. The water coming down produces negative ions. That's perfect for meditation. I tell women to go to the seashore because women are very naturally receptive and to meditate there. And that's what a lot of the so-called magicians, the magicians would do. They would look for certain specific points on the earth and they would go there and meditate and perform a ritual. And I kind of did that. I mapped all of that out. I looked at the meridian points of the earth and I said, well, here's a great place to meditate and this and that and that and this. And when you start, see, the idea is when you take all of this into account, certain spots on the earth that are magically charged, performing sex magic there, bringing a group of people instead of just you, because the more energy is there. When you start looking at that and doing that, you become powerful. Then whatever it is you want and you desire manifests. You feel me? You understand what I'm saying? But this is for those who are serious. This is not for those who want to play magic, because it's not playtime. Because it takes time for you to map out those points on the earth. It takes time for you to get together with people who are of like mind, and or to form a covenant, or to find individuals who want to engage in sex magic with you. And sex magic doesn't necessarily require that person be in love with you. You understand? Because now you get into the higher realms where you come together with people to help benefit one another and not for your own personal objectives. Personal objectives would be like, oh, I find her very pretty and sexy, so I want to have sex with her. That's a personal thing. But when you look at her and you say, listen, we both have an objective that we want to accomplish, we want to honor God, so let's get together and perform this ritual. Then that's different. That's different. That's how we saw things in ancient Kemet. You know? Just looking at the questions. Um, Ghost, that's a good one. Would you say, should you have sex relationship with a woman who is not sexually conscious? Yeah, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as she agrees to go along with the program. She may not benefit as much as you, but she will get some benefit from it. But it's best when you work with a partner who understands the power of this. Because when the two of you come together, see, that's one of the things we had learned very early on in the priesthood was that we were trying to perform miracles individually. And we realized that it's very difficult for you alone to manifest the things in your life. It may take time, but you can, but it may take time. But when you start looping in other people, the Bible says when two or more agree, so shall it be. Then you enhance the power. This is why you'll find in antiquity and ancient cultures that magic was a community event. Now we have to perform it behind closed doors, hidden individually, because you're persecuted for it. You can't go to your job and start talking about magic. And as the ghost, you brought up a very good point too. Magic does drain you. It drains you of your chi, your kundalini energy. Sometimes when you perform a sex magic ritual, you'll be out for the next 2 or 3 days. You won't be able to get out of bed. You'll be so exhausted, you know. But that's okay because you lie in bed knowing that you had accomplished your goal and what you want is coming towards you. It's on its way. So I really prescribe it if you want to take your magic to the next level, and if you want to stop jerking around, no pun intended, incorporate sex magic into your rituals. And again, going back to if you don't have a mate, you could still do it. Just it's called masturbating. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing evil about that. In fact, as I said, it's honoring God because you're not masturbating just for the sole purpose of getting off on an image of some guy looking great or some girl looking sexy. You're doing it for a specific purpose to achieve something. And you'll watch and you'll see that it's going to enhance and empower your magic, make you stronger. You don't need to do it every time, though, because that exhausts a lot of your energy. And one of the things that, when I'm teaching this, when I'm teaching this, I also incorporate other elements too. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, sex magic is strong, but there's certain herbs that you will take and that will enhance it and send you on a wild trip, if you know what I mean. That's what Aleister Crowley, that's what caused his downfall. Not only was he caught up in sex magic, but he started getting into LSD and all this other stuff to enhance the magic, which is fine because those things like LSD and ayahuasca, they're all right. They're good for magical practices, but he was using them, or I should say, abusing them. You know, and that is what you don't want to do because those things lead to a chemical dependency. The herbs that I use are natural, so you won't have to worry about that. Now, let us get down to a test. It's test time. Who is it that told me about the troll? Mind over matter. Thank you so much, Hatepu. Thank you for pointing out that the troll, because I need you, Magi's, to be watchful. Okay. All right. If you have been following my work or following the work of Michael Talbot, who did the holographic universe, um, when I wrote the my ebook, it's a very powerful ebook that you can download. I talk about it's the new capital Ankh. I talk about that one of the ways that you can increase your magical power and have it manifest is to take this one thing right after you do your meditation or your ritual. And when you take it, our research, and according to Michael Talbot, has shown that what you want will manifest. Does anybody know what that is? I take it in the, let's see if I have it here. I think I have it here. Yeah, I do have it here. I take it in a pill form. And it's very powerful because what it's going to do is when you take it, you will feel it. You'll feel it that it stimulates you sexually. See, sexual energy can be channeled and make you powerful. But sexual energy can be duplicated so that you don't have to actually be engaged in masturbation or sex. So this is the pill here. But it's not only in pill form, but it can come as a drink, it can come as anything. So Magi's, if you've read the New Capital Ankh or if you've read Michael Talbot's book, he talks about how he studied people in Vegas and he could see how people in Vegas could manipulate the roll of the dice and they would win. And they asked him, they said, well, what is the thing they would use to help them win? And he kind of talked about that. Does anybody remember that? And actually, to be honest with you, it's not published in his book, The Holographic Universe. He talked about it in a lecture he did, but I put it in the New Capital Ankh as part of the process that you should incorporate. I've taken the maca root. No, it's not that. Ross Seckert, got it. Caffeine. It's a caffeine pill. Caffeine stimulates you. It stimulates the mind. It stimulates the chi energy. And what Michael Talbot found out that once individuals would do a visualization and they would drink some coffee or take a caffeine pill and they would again visualize their objective, it would manifest. Very powerful. So in my book, The New Capital Ankh, I show you the steps by which to go through to manifest something you want. And then I show you when you should take the caffeine pill or you should drink the coffee. Don't go abusing it now. So be careful because you'll be jittery and you won't stop talking, or you know. But what you'll notice is that you get a kind of natural high, and you'll feel aroused, like as if you were having sex by the amount of caffeine you intake. So keep that in mind, you know, because we're talking about, and of course, I've tested this. It's nothing I just read about or heard him say and just went with it. You have to test this stuff out. See, that's why I tell you that there's a difference between people who are reading books and just regurgitating information and others like us who go out there and actually apply this information and test it, field test it to make sure it works. So you want to try that. Sometimes when I would do the ritual itself, I would just take the caffeine pill or drink the coffee, and coffee is Sebek. Sebek loves coffee. And then I would perform the visualization. But like all things, don't abuse it, use it sparingly. And then there's also other things you can take too. Like prior to doing your ritual, you should take GABA. The GABA will calm you and slow you down to put you in the theta state. Does that make sense? And then from the theta state, you go back to the full waking state with the caffeine. All right. You Magi did good today, man. I didn't think you were going to get that answer. I said, no, they'll never get that answer. You guys are studying, especially Ross Secker. Been studying. That's good. So want to thank you all. If you get an opportunity, please get your Kemetic name. Very important because your name is your mantra. That determines your destiny. And when people say your Kemetic name, it gives you energy. It feeds you energy to live truth. Your Western name is meaningless. You don't have to change your name. You can keep your Western name, But your Kemetic name, you have your close friends and family members call you by that. And the one thing that we learned is that when you get your Kemetic name, for example, my name is Kisank Maha Keparu. And one of my instructors had told me this, and he was absolutely right. He says, people should not be calling you Kisank Maha Keparu. He said, because you're their teacher. That's your personal name. So they should be calling you by the title. And I remember years ago, I had them call me by Sabai. And I never really liked that because I explained to you, Sabai comes from Geb or Seb, the deity Geb Seb, and which means, Sabai means earth-born knowledge. So what I'm imparting to you is not born of the earth. Earth-born knowledge is Sebek, but higher knowledge and wisdom is Tehuti. So I wouldn't use Sebai anymore. Title would be different. And in the priesthood, when you reach a certain level, we would call them Shechems. And when you reach the highest level, we call you Shechem, or Shechem means power, great power. So that's a little lesson for you there. So anyway, yeah, words and mantra. Your name is a mantra. It's going to empower you. So I want to thank you all for being patient and attending this broadcast, even though I kind of put it off a couple of times. So anyway, this is Gasank Ma Keparu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Hedaru, goddess of sex, love, and magic. Until my next broadcast, Amun Ra.